Hey Kevin, we love watching your videos, but can you show more real street racing footage? Can you actually use that footage and cover what you're trying to say and teach? I really think that'd be a great idea. Hey, welcome back to Kevin Wilson SBC. This is going to be a fun video, and I'm excited to share with you some actual footage from a street race down in Florida. Compliments of Billy from the Street Racing channel. Thank you, Billy, for giving me permission to do this. I think this is going to be a great video and cover some no prep street racing suspension thoughts and some ideas that maybe you have heard about, hopefully you have heard, but maybe you're still struggling around whether you should implement them or not. So today I want to go over some video from the actual race that Billy and Tommy and the others were down there doing, and hopefully from seeing the actual video from a street race, from real cars, street racing, I can go over what's happening and explain this more to you with actual footage. So let's get started. This first video clip, I want you to take a look at Boston George and a Mustang that works extremely well, and I always enjoy watching his footage. I want you to watch this car leave the line, and let's focus on the front suspension first. And as the car goes down the track, I'm going to pause and zoom in a little bit. I want to talk about the rear suspension and what can you see happening in the video. So the very first thing is, let's watch him leave the line. So here's a video clip of him leaving, and I'm going to do some slow motion. Here we go. All right, what did you see? Here's what I want you to focus on. This is a very crude drawing of a front end, and Lord knows I don't know what kind of car this is. I'm not an artist, but we'll get the point. The yellow is the center line of the spindle, and red is a good solid point as close to directly above the spindle, vertical to the ground, so perpendicular to the ground, that you can measure. And let's assume this is the car at ride height. As Boston George's car leaves, you'll notice the front end comes up nice and slow. It doesn't just jerk the front end up and then bounce and bounce and jerk, and you're not seeing all this. What you're seeing is a very slow front end separation. So if this is yellow and this is red, what you're seeing is him hit with power management. He's not dumping 30 pounds of boost on the hit on the street. But what you see is as the car hits and leaves, what you see is this. And then notice that it holds the front end up. As he hits and leaves, this drives up nice and slow. It doesn't jerk up and then come back down and bounce. The distance from here to here is what we're going to use to measure front end rise. If you want to know how much front end rise your car has, you get it race ready, you get it sitting on a level ground, and you measure from here. And what I normally do is I'll put a little blue piece of painter's tape on the fender when I know I'm good and vertical. That way I know with that blue painter's tape, and I'll use a little level and I'll draw a little line on the blue painter's tape with a Sharpie. That way I know I'm measuring in the same spot. And if you want to get particular, you can put a little piece of blue tape on the spindle and put a line. That way you know you're measuring from the same spot. It's a reference. It doesn't have to be exactly in the center line of the spindle, but you do want to measure from the same spots. So you measure, car sitting on the ground. You jack up the front cross member so that the wheels are going to droop down. And what you want to do, this is the ground. What you want to do is you want to measure and then jack the cross member up until this just starts to move. So the front end, the chassis and fender are going to come up, and eventually this is going to grab and start to lift. The minute that starts to move, stop moving the jack. Then measure from here to here again. Subtract the measurement from the car at ride height to here. So we're going to measure at ride height, and let's say that number, let's say that is, I don't know, let's just call it 20 inches. You're going to jack the car up and let the front end droop, let it extend, and let's say that measures 26 inches. So what you have here, 26 minus 20 equals 6 inches of front end rise. I said this in a previous video. If you're no prepping on the street, I don't even mean no prep, you're on a street and you don't know how much front end rise you have, then you're missing the mark. But this is how you get front end rise. Now let's take a look. I'm gonna come back to Boston George because this video, whoever shot this video, I got some beautiful video of the rear suspension I want to talk about. But while we're on the front end, let's change gears and let's look at what Tommy does, what Tommy's Falcon does when he leaves for his race. The rest of the races are kind of dark, but this is great footage of Tommy's. So let's watch Tommy's. Okay, what did you see the Falcon doing? My goodness, it looks very similar, if not exactly like, Boston George's car. Notice how the front end, on the hit, the front end begins to come up, keeps coming up, gets the full extension, and stays there. And you will notice later in the run, the front end does start to settle back down. It doesn't fall down, but it does start to settle back down, probably around when Tommy shifted. But that's kind of how it works. You leave and extend, hold it, keep the weight on the rear, and then as the car begins to settle down, it comes back down under control. Now it's still got some lift on it. The front end doesn't settle down until Tommy gets to the end and lifts, and then it comes back down under control. Even on the top end. I don't want the front end just swishing down. I mean, guys, 130, 140 miles an hour. You just don't want the front end falling back to the ground, unloading the rear, and now you're on ice, right? Now you've just unloaded the rear end. So important. Now let's change gears. Let's go to Boston George and let's look at the rear end, the rear suspension, and what's happening during the run. Okay, here's a even worse drawing of the rear end of what could be a Mustang, a Fox body Mustang or a hatchback or whatever. But I want you to notice that, golly, this is terrible. So this is the rear end. These are the small tires. These right here are the shocks. These are the lower control arms. And then, of course, you have your triangulated upper control arms that you normally can't see, but I wanted you to see it for this drawing. So let's assume this is the back of Boston George's car on the line, getting ready to race ready, at an idle. Now, let's go back, and I'm going to zoom in and slow down this video of Boston George's car up on the top end. And I want you to notice that everyone talks about slicks and squat. I'm not a proponent of a bunch of squat with a small tire slick. Remember, we're going to be running tubes, and I'm actually going to put more than 100% anti-squat in my small tire slick cars with tubes. Now, I mean, I'm not going to run a 165 to 180, 200% anti-squat, but I'm definitely going to be starting out around 125 and maybe even close to 145% anti-squat with the right shocks and valving. Now, as this car leaves and goes down the track, some of you may be saying, well, Kevin, how the heck do you know Boston George has rear separation? Great question. I'm going to show you from this video. If you pay attention to the video, you can see the chassis movements, and I know there is more than 100% anti-squat in this car because of what I see happening on the rear end in relation to the chassis. And you're going to see that the body is going up and the rear end is getting driven down to the track because the distance spread between the bottom of the body and the rear end axles is greater. There's a greater distance as the car is going down the track. And then watch what happens when he gets to the end and he lifts. The suspension settles back down, and then we come back to how we are at ride height. If you pay attention and you watch these cars that are so successful on street racing, and let's admit it, Boston George is successful. The street racing channel, Billy with the S10, Tommy with the Falcon, they are successful street racers regardless of whether you like them or not, or regardless of whether you agree with street racing or not. They're successful. You should be following these guys, watching these guys, whether they tell you what their car is doing, whether they show you how their car is set up. With this knowledge, you can watch these videos and you can glean and learn if you're willing to put in the work. Put in the time, study. These guys work hard to get these cars to do what they do. They have had lots of issues. They've had their share of trouble. They are learning by trying and experience. These guys have got it going on. And I want you to notice power management, power management. I'm not going to show you, but on the in-car videos, pay attention to what the ECUs are telling you. You can see RPMs. You can see how much boost is going on, and you can watch and see what the boost is doing through the run. Come on, guys. Study this stuff, and you can do it. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this video. I am really loving spending more time late at night creating new content. I'm excited about it. The remote suspension tuning stuff is being very successful. Lots of happy customers. We're getting more and more in-shop work. I am booked up through almost the end of February now for in-shop chassis work at Samson Performance, which is a part of Sam's Frame and Alignment. It's just what I call the chassis tuning. But thank you for supporting the channel. And remember, we're trying to go fast, we're trying to go straight, and we're trying to be safe. Thank you, guys.